All right, here's a radio story for you guys. So during the pandemic, there's no sports going on. Doing sports radio with no sports, a little bit taxing. Wasn't the easiest, especially after like week, 2, when you're kind of done talking about when will sports come back and society wasn't great and all that. So the first sport to come back was the UFC, MMA. That was the first sport. Dana White gets Fight Island, which was just like an island in, I don't know, the Arab Emirates. And he put on cards. And I thought, okay, finally I can talk about MMA. It's a sport that I like. It's a sport that I follow pretty religiously, but it's a sport I don't get to talk about because of the fact that, quote, it doesn't rate well. And that's, I think, what gets lost a lot of times with listeners is like they wonder why stations talk about the Eagles so much. And it's like, well, you literally see a jump when they talk about the Eagles, no matter what day of the week it is, what time of the year it is. Like, we would constantly get like, why don't you guys talk about the Flyers? You see a dip when people talk about the Flyers. Like, I love hockey. I had a game last night. I got a game tomorrow. I watch sport all the time. It's a chicken and egg thing. Flyers fans would call up and say, like, you guys don't talk about hockey. And then when we would talk about hockey, they want to call up, and we'd be like, why didn't you call up? Well, because you guys never talk about hockey. It's like they weren't listening anyway. And MMA was such a niche sport that we weren't going to talk about it. But in this particular instance, I thought, okay, I have a 3-hour show. There's no sports going on. There's one sport. I will dedicate an hour to breaking down this UFC card, and I can hopefully help you guys like win some bets or something. And if not, just know, we lost money together. So I do that. I do it for like 2 or 3 weeks. And my producer at the time, a guy named Josh Rabick, who was also a big MMA fan, that was the most fun I had for my show. It was like, I didn't really care about taking calls. I was just able to talk about the topic that I liked. Thought I was fairly knowledgeable. I was one of the more knowledgeable people in Philadelphia sports radio circles, at least. I'm not saying I was the only one that followed it, but in the station that I worked at, there might have been one like casual watcher. But for the most part, like I was the only one. And I loved it. And I got called to my boss's office, who I had a great relationship with, Chuck. And he's like, can't talk about MMA. And it was one of the few times I really disagreed with him. And I was like, why? Dude, it's the only sport going on right now. And he kind of gave me the like, you know why? I'm like, Chuck, dude, you're asking me to get water out of a stone here. Like, I'm giving a lifeline by the UFC. I actually know the topic, and I can't talk about it. You know what? I can talk about it. I can talk about it here. I can finally talk about MMA. And look, I'm wrong as much as I'm right with the sport, but I found it interesting because yesterday, the UFC announced the card for UFC 316, and it will be headlined by the rematch of Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. And this one, for all you Philly people, is going to be a local card, kind of. It's in Newark, New Jersey, at the Prudential Center. But the card is really good. And I don't think this is the International Fight Week card, because that's usually, I believe, in July. But I'll tell you, I'm not excited at all for this main event. At all. I was one of the people that thought Merab would lose to Umar. And I got roped into the narrative by MMA media that Merab will lose to Umar, because most of the MMA media was so Umar Nurmagomedov upped. I mean, they were just drinking the Kool-Aid, that there wasn't a world where Merab could win. And I really like Merab. I've liked Merab since he came to the UFC, since he was on Dana White looking for a fight. Like, the dude is, to me, he's entertaining. I understand why people don't think he's entertaining. To me, he's entertaining. And when he beat Umar, it was like, okay, well, who's next? Yeah, I guess it's Sean. But the idea that the fight is going to go any different than the first time, I think, is foolish. Merab is nicknamed the Machine for a reason, and I think you saw that in not only the first O'Malley fight, but the Umar fight, when he wore down Umar Nurmagomedov. And I think Umar would beat Sean O'Malley. And that's not to take away from Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is a really, really good fighter. Hasn't really gotten to show off his ground game at all because of his striking ability. It's just really good. But we keep hearing that he's got a really good ground game. I would have liked to see Sean O'Malley fight Umar. I think what you're going to have to see in this one for O'Malley is like he's going to have to catch Merab coming in perfectly, kind of like he did Aljo. And even then, I don't know if I don't know if that's going to be enough. I mean, we've seen Merab get caught, mainly in the Marlon Moraes fight. Like, he was seemingly out on his feet, and yet, he ended up winning that fight because he did his thing. He wrestled, he got a hold of him, he was able to recover and clinch, and then when he finally recovered, he was fine. But Merab's ground game is so much better, his wrestling at least, is so much better than Malley, that he will just hold you down, wear you down, and let you know about it. And that's why I think he's way more entertaining than, like, a Khabib. Khabib would maul you. There was something entertaining about it, though. Like, Merab's sitting there having full-on conversations with people during the fight. I love that dude. But I don't think this is going to be a very entertaining fight. I think this is going to be 25 minutes of Sean O'Malley getting ragdolled again, of Sean O'Malley getting held down. Afterwards, Sean O'Malley owning it, but then saying, like, hey, why couldn't we stand and trade? Well, that's not really the game. I think a lot of times MMA fans forget that these guys get paid to win. It's like, let's say, 100 to show, 100 to win. Well, if you lose, there goes half your paycheck. You got 100 to show, you didn't get the other 100 to win. So I'm not overly looking forward to this fight, but name recognition-wise, it's a pretty good one. And I think it's the fight that a lot of fans want to see. It did crack me up during the Merab thing of, like, I know a lot of people were like, oh, he's scared of Umar. No, he's not. Merab, and he proved that. But Merab was never scared of Umar. Merab wanted the rematch of O'Malley because it was the easier fight and because he knew that would get more eyeballs. Sean O'Malley is going to sell way more pay-per-views than Umar Nurmagomedov. And for Sean O'Malley, it's an easier fight for Merab, who now has the pay-per-view points as the champion. And I think that's why he was saying, like, I don't know if Umar has done enough. Like, Umar did, but I don't think there was a doubt in my mind that Merab would have rather faced, in his opinion, the easier fight in Sean O'Malley than face the harder fight where he probably was going to get paid less because of the pay-per-view numbers. But O'Malley's got that, McGregor lore a little bit, where he's got the Buffalo Wild Wing bros who will come out in full force. Like, I thought O'Malley lost to Peter Yan, and immediately I got a bunch of people pointing out, like, the numbers in the fight, like the striking numbers. I watched the fight. I thought he lost. This one, though, I don't think there's a chance in hell it changes. I think Merab absolutely ends up running through him. A couple other fights on the card as I run through them. Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Credit to Juliana Pena for trying. She's trying very hard to be like this heel-ish figure in women's MMA, and I think at this point, women's MMA kind of needs that right now. They don't really have that. They don't really have their Ronda, their, like, must-watch person. Harrison might be the closest thing, but even then, she's only had, I think, 3 UFC fights. How many people were watching her in PFL? And the weight cut is real. Even then, I still think Kayla Harrison is going to take this one. I think Juliana Pena is really good. All right? I think Juliana Pena's fight against Amanda was the definition of a fluke. Like, caught Amanda on a bad day, wore some punches, Amanda gassed out, Juliana took advantage of it, but I think it was a fluke. And then Amanda proved it. Like, Amanda and Valentina are the only 2 women I have ever seen. Actually, no, I think they might be the only 2 fighters I've ever seen where they will go 5 rounds just to say they did it. Like, they are cat and mouse when it comes to opponents. Just that cat playing with the dead mouse in the hallway that doesn't know it's dead, trying to get away. And it's like, no, come back over here. And we've seen Valentina and Amanda do that time and time again. I can't believe we're never going to get that super fight. We got it before, but, like, I need it again. But we all know what's going to happen. Like, Juliana's going to be focused more on Amanda probably during this and say that Kayla Harrison doesn't deserve it and she hasn't really fought anybody, and Kayla Harrison's going to take the high road. But for the most part, I think Kayla Harrison ends up kind of running through her a little bit. But, look, Juliana Pena's ground game is real. So we'll see. And as I said, the weight cut. Number 3 fight on the card, Mario Bautista versus Chito Vera in a 3-rounder for the 135. Chito's got to get in the win column. Been a rough little stretch for Chito since the O'Malley fight. And I think Chito's biggest problem is the dude just takes forever to get going. And in a 3-round fight, you can't afford to take forever to get going. You just cannot do it. And for whatever reason, it seems like he takes that first round off, which we've seen some people do before in the past. But even he takes half of the second round off, and he's just kind of stuck in second gear. But he needs a win, as I'm trying to pull up his Tapology, and it's not working, which is cool, because I don't pay like a good $100 a month for internet. Mario Batista had an absolute snooze fest his last fight. Absolute snoozer, and he tried to call out Henry Cejudo afterwards, and Henry's like, dude, what? No. You didn't do anything in that fight. You bored the hell out of everybody. So even this fight, while I think that this card is name recognition, I don't think this fight is really interesting. And I like Chito Vera a lot, but you've got a guy who should be motivated in Mario Batista to at least put on a show and not hold people, which is essentially what he did in his last outing, and taking on a guy that takes forever to get in a second gear, but has the ability to put it on you once he does find his range. It's going to be an interesting fight, and it has the chance to be a good one. I just don't know necessarily if it's going to live up to that. Like, I hope, obviously. I mean, we're talking about the main card here. But, all right, fourth fight, Johnny Walker versus Azamat Murzakanov. Okay, look, I think it's pretty clear. I'm not real familiar with Azamat. He's 14-0. Light heavyweight. Now, this might be a situation where when I actually look at his numbers and look at his Tapology, I'm going to go, oh, yeah, that guy. Johnny Walker's a weird figure in the sense of, like, he had that losing streak, and then he claimed he was getting poisoned by CBD, and since then he does look a lot better, but he is so hit or miss. Like, he either gets knocked out or he puts it on his opponent, and then he does the worm. All right, fifth fight on the card, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Flyweights always produce, and I don't think this one will be any different. This one's going to be a really, really fun one. Joshua Van's one to watch in the division. Picked up a win last time out. Bruno Silva's fun to watch. Like, this is going to be, I think, your one that if you're a casual fan, this actually might end up being the best fight on the main card. In terms of entertainment purposes, sign me up for that one. And then the last fight that was announced was Sergey Spivak versus Shamil Gaziev. I love the Polar Bear. Love the dude. Can't tell you why. I think it's just because he's so undersized for a heavyweight. But the dude's got fast hands, and he's one of. I think it's the fact he's one of the few heavyweights that can actually, like, grapple. I don't know. I enjoy it. There you go. There's your UFC 13 minutes. I used to get a UFC minute on the show I watch. Just got 13 minutes, kind of breaking down the UFC 316. So yeah, we'll talk more MMA, which is cool. Other than, like, the Philadelphia topics that I get annoyed at.